So there was a song, and I can't remember who it was, and as soon as I say the lyrics, somebody's going to jump up and know exactly who it was and when it was, but it was, hello, it's me, haven't seen you in a long, long time. So that's what I'm saying to you. Back again. Okay. This year, Bulova is celebrating its 150th year. And a couple of years ago, I was made aware of this through Susan Chandler, who's regrettably not here, but was Citizen, and a really terrific person. And we have had a great collaboration with them through our Arts and Crafts Conference and involving Frank Lloyd Wright watches, which is how I first met Danelle. So as soon as I heard that, I thought, oh my gosh, we want to celebrate that. And so I'm super thrilled that the next segment is going to focus on what is utter truth, the preciousness of time, celebrating Bulova watches over 150 years. And the participants are Danelle Hudson, who is the design director at Citizen Watch America, Carl Rosen, who is a Bulova historian and former chief operating officer at Bulova, and a special hello and embrace to Barbara Palumbo. We are so excited to have her back with us. Yes, baby, it's you. And Barbara writes something called, oh no, what's the watch on her wrist? There's,
What's on her wrist?
yeah, go ahead.
What's the watch I'm wearing? We're going
Yeah.
to talk about that, Lisa.
So-
Don't kill my presentation.
Pardon?
I said we're going to talk about that in a minute.
Okay, all right, fine. So she's going to tell you all about what she does, but here's the thing. She knows an unbelievable amount about watches and jewelry, and she's also an amazing good time. And we are very fortunate to have had her with us over the years, and so glad that she is back. And also a shout out to Monica Stevenson, who is with us virtually, because at one point, Barbara wrote Adorn Mentality, and Monica Eye Dazzle, and they both glittered here, so aren't we lucky to have this ray of sunshine again. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Thanks for having us back, and Erin and David and Izzy and team. And guys, good to see you. If this is okay, I'm more comfortable holding the mic, so I hope that that's not gonna ruin anything for anybody. Yes, Carl is an old friend, and I'm so excited to have him. There's one here, do you wanna give him this one? And Danelle, I'm so excited to have you here, so thank you both for joining me for this. So to give you guys a brief history about the brand. First of all, Bulova's U.S. headquarters are actually located right here in New York City. They are in the Empire State Building. If you ever get the chance, do go up, visit. You have to call first because they're going to have to let you up. But it's just a magnificent space. Obviously, being in the Empire State Building, most spaces in there are fantastic. But the fact that we are here in this building now, a little history. Joseph Bulova was born near Prague, in what was formerly Czechoslovakia, is now Czech Republic, and began the J. Bulova Company, which then became the Bulova Watch Company, right here in New York City in 1875. This is a really fitting venue to have this discussion because obviously, you know, it's Bohemia, and that is what historically what Czechoslovakia was referred to as. Not to end my sentences in a preposition, and my mother would be very upset with me right now. So it's wonderful to be here and discussing not only one of the most successful watch companies to ever come out of New York, but also out of America, truth be told. So we're here to celebrate its history, its impact on society, pop culture, and women's rights, which we're going to get into in a little bit, and also to discuss the Bulova documentary, which is airing right now on its 150th year anniversary. It's on Amazon Prime, should anybody go back to their hotel rooms tonight and want to actually pull that up. You can view that. But So I co-host a podcast, Scottish Watches podcast, and the first thing we do on that podcast when we go to record is we do a wrist check. So we are going to do that now. Carl, because you are head of heritage, I'm going to start with you. Since my blog is What's on Her Wrist, tell these folks what's on your wrist.
Okay, what's on his wrist, on my left wrist anyway, is a Bulova Accutron Space View, dating back to roughly 1970. The Space View was the iconic Accutron. Ironically, it was not intentionally designed that way. With a new technology that was launched in 1960, it was a brand new technology, and to show the jewelers how it worked, the sales reps would go in with a prototype with an open dial and show to the jewelers. And they said, this is amazing. And they said, why can't you do that to the consumers? So that's how the Space View was born a year later. And that really became the iconic image of the Accutron brand. And I think for this audience, I might tell a little anecdote that, you know, when you look at this, you can really see how everything works. And Richard Rogers, the architect, who's the architect of the Pompidou Center in Paris, was given a Space View Accutron when he was about 14 years old by his mother. And that inspired him to do this whole form-following function to design the Pompidou Center exactly the way it was, so you can see how it works. So I thought that was pretty cool. But on my right,
he's double wristing, which is what we watch nerds.
we watch
nerds tend to do that.
If we just get consumers to do that, we'd solve our sales problems. On my right wrist, I have something called the Super Seville, which we just relaunched within the last year. It was originally from 1979. And what we've done with the archives, we'll talk a little bit later about it, is reissue or reimagine some of the old watches. So I really love this watch. It's sort of a nod to nostalgia. It's still current to consumers today, but what I like is it's basically the same shape as the watch that I have on my left wrist, and sort of has a green, the one I have, it has a green tone on it. But when Accutron was launched in 1960, it was the most accurate timepiece at the time ever.
And to let everybody know, Accutron is part of Bulova.
Correct.
And Donnell obviously works for the Citizen Group. Bulova, Accutron, they're all under the Citizen Group umbrella, along with several other brands.
Right.
So just so people are like, well, wait, are you talking Accutron or Bulova? Just to kind of to let you guys know on that if you don't know.
But just to finish off on the Accutron, it was accurate to 1 or 2 seconds a day. And that was sort of revolutionary at the time. And that was at 360 hertz, so 360 vibrations per second of that, for that watch. The watch on my right is the high precision quartz movement by Bulova, and its accuracy is 262,000 hertz. So 262,000 versus 360. So we've got a lot of new stuff under the covers here. So anyway, I thought it would.
Yeah, so for anybody who disses quartz timepieces, the reality is quartz are more accurate. But you know, the OG people are like, oh, we got to go with mechanical movements. Donnell, before I ask you what's on your wrist, I want to. Carl and I are in a debate right now about the name of the shape of these two watches. I said either cushion or tonneau. He's saying television shape. So since you're the design guy, you tell us what it is.
Well, we refer to it in a couple different ways. Definitely cushion is one. Right, but I've also heard television shape, and that's more of a sort of a vintage term, is the television.
Okay.
But in design speak, we usually call it a cushion.
I hear you. You just don't want to tick him off, I know. All right, what's on your wrist, Donnell?
So I'm wearing our newest lunar pilot watch, and this is a watch that has a really great history, a really great story. It's actually the only privately owned watch that's ever gone to the moon. So this is a newer version of it, but the story behind that is the astronaut who went to the moon was issued his standard issue watch, which was not a Bulova, it was an Omega. Went to the moon, crystal cracked, right? So he said, well, I have my own watch that he packed in his luggage, I guess. And he brought that, and he decided to wear that instead. So he put that on, he did all the sort of the things they needed to do on the moon, the timing, the experiments, these sorts of things. So fast forward back, when was it called, 2016? 2016, this watch goes up for auction, and it sells for, at Christie's was it, and it sells for about
$1.625 million.
$1.625 million.
That would be million.
Right? Before that, however, we had already started, and we knew about this, the story of it going to the moon and everything. We wanted to mine our heritage, and we already started development on the reissue. And I remember when the watch came out, a lot of the comments were like, "Oh wow, Bulova, they're really capitalizing off this $1.7 million sale or what it was." Meanwhile, we had already started, developing the watch years before. So this newest version actually on the dial has a material called Damascus, which is a combination of titanium and Damascus steel. It's really innovative, it's really new, but we'll kind of get into that a little bit later.
Well, I think a lot of the folks in this room are very familiar with Damascus, so I thought it would be really interesting to get into that. Thank you for that. I am going to say what I'm wearing. On my left wrist, because I'm double wristing as well, I have the Accutron Legacy Le Cool. And one of the things that Accutron does, and again, we're going to go into this a little bit more, is they partner with the Latin Grammys. So they have a lot of partnerships with musicians, including Kool and the Gang, right? And that's kind of how this one came out, right? So this was a reissue as well. I think it originally came out, this design, in 1966. Did I get that right?
Sounds good.
Okay. You're the historian. Yeah, 1966. It's sort of a sideways football shape. And, but this is an mechanical timepiece, an automatic timepiece, and it came with 3 straps, quick change straps. So I put the gold on today for the conference, but there's a rose gold colored strap and then a cool black glittery strap, which is great. It's actually one of my dress watches that I wear. And then Carl was kind enough to bring from the museum for me today the watch that appears in the 1972 Equal Pay, Equal Time ad that Bulova put forth in the era of the Equal Rights Amendment. And that was the year before I was born. And that ad and that, the whole meaning behind it was a beautiful ad. It may pop up here. If not, you can see it in the documentary. But it showed a man's hand and a woman's hand wearing the man's version of this watch and the woman's hand. And it always resonated with me, clearly, if you know me or know anything about me, and the fight that we still, are dealing with even in today's times. So thank you for bringing that. I don't get to keep it. I do have to send it back with him, but I do run faster than he does, so we'll see how that goes. So, I know you like that. Carl, I am going to start with you. All right. Just quickly, for the people who don't know, just give us a brief synopsis of the brand. You are the historian, sort of quickly throughout time. And then, other than the documentary, tell us what Bulova is doing collectively this year to celebrate their 150th anniversary.
So the brand has always been about craftsmanship, innovation, and technology. It started out in 1875 really as a jewelry company. And Joseph Bulova was an jewelry artisan back in Bohemia in the day, and he came to this country when he was 19 years old. And so what does he do with his craft? Is he worked for Tiffany for 5 years before he started his own jewelry company. But it wasn't until about 1912 that he actually got into watches. So for that first 35 plus years, it was only jewelry. And I think that because of that DNA in jewelry, there's a lot of attention to detail, especially for ladies' watches, that really continues through today. Bulova is not known for a specific style. I talked about the iconic, Space View maybe, but a lot of brands are very focused on a particular look. Bulova is not. Bulova wanted to be on the wrist of many people, created many different styles. They wanted it to be an affordable quality timepiece on the wrist. And in the early 1920s, Bulova was the first company to have a full line of ladies' jeweled wristwatches. So they wanted to give people a choice. And it evolved, over the time, pun intended. It was a leader in design, but it also followed the fashions of the times. So that they were extremely strong in the Art Deco period, with some very innovative, detailed filigree watches. And one thing, I'll jump to the 150th, what we've done is throughout the year we've been releasing watches inspired by our history. So we have, for instance, a Miss America watch, and we were the first company to be affiliated with Miss America.
That was one of those deco timepieces, right?
Pardon?
That was one of the deco timepieces?
Decos, yes. So actually, we started with Miss America in 1927, and then in 1930, we came out with a Miss America, which is a filigree watch. It's dainty, it's beautiful. It's an expansion band, actually, but with the attention to detail that Bulova has focused on, even when you expand the watch, each one of the links inside has that filigree. So even if it's expanded a little bit, it doesn't take away from the beauty of the watch. So one thing we did is one of the pieces we've reissued in the 150th year is that ladies' Art Deco piece, and it looks identical to it.
Oh, yeah.
So over the years, we've had many different styles. Sometimes it's been innovative for the technology. Donnell was very involved in a watch we called the Curve, which is the world's first curved chronograph. The movement is actually curved, so that it can be in a case that's curved, that can sit nicely on your wrist and be extremely comfortable. So to me, one of the beauties of Bulova is the diversity of the types of styles that we can offer, both on the men's and the ladies' side. On the 150th year, we looked back. We looked at some iconic styles. We looked at some things to inspire some of our designs this year, and we came out with both men's and ladies, some way back to the Art Deco period, some from the 1970s. We have a pocket watch, but we want to celebrate that history. And so we even went back to an old logo. We didn't take our current logo, and actually I noticed in the Wimbledon over the weekend.
Can you explain the tuning fork logo?
Well, the tuning fork was from the technology from the Accutron. The tuning fork is actually what vibrates at 360 hertz to push a pawl finger, which actually has a mechanism to then tell the time. But so that technology became iconic to the brand, and actually Bulova changed their logo to include that tuning fork as an homage to the Accutron brand and the technology that they created.
Love that. I love that. I'm actually, that's a great segue, because Donnell, I do want to talk to you, since we are on sort of this topic of heritage. What role does the brand's heritage and its backstory play in your design process? How do you translate that into, helping to craft what would eventually become a physical watch?
Right, well, the first thing I'll say is that Bulova is all about storytelling and our history, right? We always talk in the office about how no one really needs a watch anymore nowadays, because you can tell the time with your phone or any other device, really. But what we try to key in is to the story and the emotion behind our watches. So, we have all this great history, this really rich history. So it's kind of a combination of looking at what we have that's already working in terms of the vintage pieces, but then also modernizing it for today, right? Carl spoke about some pieces like the Miss America. That was basically a one-to-one reproduction as best as we could do with modern technology. But oftentimes we also take it and we go a different direction. We're more inspired by, right? And we try to create new customers, new stories, try to bring new people into the Bulova history, because it is so rich. A perfect example of that is the Rubaiyat, one of our ladies' collections. For the 150th anniversary, the original version was more of like a pendant watch. It could kind of be interchangeable. We decided to modernize it a little bit, take some of those elements, but make it cleaner, make it a little more sophisticated. For the 150th version, 150th anniversary, we did 4 different versions based on the 4 seasons, essentially. So you have winter, spring, summer, and fall, all with these infused with these different colors, different elements that represent all of the 4 different seasons. So it's really all about the storytelling, all about the history, and we just try to make sure we're doing it well, but also advancing it.
So I'm going to stick with you, and thank you for that answer. I sometimes feel weird to go like, what does this mean to you? But genuinely, you are a designer. This is what you do. So what does innovation mean to you personally as a designer? Is it functionality, aesthetics, technology, something else, a combination of a variety of those things? How do you go into this? And I do want to also ask you a 2-part question. obviously the headquarters are in Japan now because Citizen Group did, purchase Bulova, so its headquarters are in Japan, even though obviously you still have a presence here in the U.S. How does that, how do you work with them, and is that a good working relationship? And is it you may come up with an idea and they go, meh, and they nixed it, or I want to ask you about that as well.
Actually, that's a good question to ask in terms of the innovation, because we get a lot of support, and it's a very good working relationship with Japan. A lot of the engineering comes over from Japan, so they invest a lot in this sort of new innovative technologies and new things that we can sort of move forward and bring to the brand. Perfect example with Accutron is the new electrostatic movement that we debuted in 2020. Now, this movement is one of the world's first. Carl can kind of get into more of the details of it, but essentially, there's never been a movement like this in the history of watchmaking. So it's these kinds of things that are really kind of necessary when you talk about innovation. It's from that side in terms of the engineering. When you talk about the design, I would say it's a combination of things, really. We look at materials. We look at colors. We are very heavy into R&D.
Do you trends? I mean, does that affect your design process?
Trends are important in a way. We look at what's out there in the market, but we also have to make it our own, right? Bulova, we don't fashion ourselves as trend followers. We like to set trends, and we like to do things sort of our own way. So one perfect example is the Sapphire Series X that we came out with recently, and there's an example of it over here. Usually when you see a sapphire case in watchmaking, they usually use the full sapphire case, right? The entire thing, so you can see through it. We felt that wouldn't really necessarily be appropriate for us in particular, so we did more of a sandwich construction with this new case where you have the sapphire on top and the bottom, and then you have a stainless steel sandwich in between. So I think it's staying true to ourselves from that standpoint that makes us really innovative. I talked about the Damascus material. That's really important. Materials is a really big thing.
Oh yeah. I remember when
really big thing.
You talked about the curve. I remember when the curve came out. And again, it's not just the movements curve, which had never been done before, but the sapphire crystal, the case is curved. And it does. There is absolutely no space on the wrist. It's like so crazy.
One thing that's fun for me as a historian is working with product development is we look at, and I have a bevy of watches to look from. We do inspire things, but it's nice to look at different elements. So whether or not it's a dial treatment, a marker, hands, different elements that get incorporated but give a sense for that vintage, whether or not we're trying to replicate something from the 1950s or the 1970s. We take some of these very subtle things and bring them forward to today.
So that's actually, I'm so glad you said that. That segues into my next, I just like using the word segue in case anybody hasn't caught that. That segues into my next question. First of all, and we've known each other for years now, your role there is fascinating to me. I love the fact that you were COO, but now you're head of heritage. How do you decide, I mean, we've now talked several times about rebrands. Like this was a rebrand, and the Legacy was a rebrand from 1966. And we've talked about the Rubaiyat being a rebrand. How do you get to decide okay, you know what, this is the collection we're gonna reissue? What's the process to that?
Well, ultimately it's the product development, but I give some suggestions. Sometimes we actually go out to the collector community. We say we're going to look to do an archive series, a watch, and from something from the 1970s. We've got these three ones we could reproduce. What do you think is the most significant from the collector side? So sometimes we've actually even had a vote out there.
I was going to say, do you show up to collector community events like Red Bar and stuff, and do you let the guys look and put up a display?
And I take the notes on sort of on a
I love that.
A qualitative basis, see what people are really into, or say, I've been looking for that watch, and so we get that kind of feedback.
And Bulova themselves, not to sidetrack here, but they have their own collector community, guys who own hundreds of them.
Or thousands.
Or thousands. Seriously, it's in the documentary.
One that had 5,000, and the way
Can you imagine 5,000 watches?
And I was able to purchase some from him, and he was resistant at first, But he said, I'm going to sell them to you at his cost because the watches were coming home.
Now, you're saying you purchased them, or you,
No, for
you
the-
bought them for the archive?
For the archive.
For the archives, okay.
Right. And
All right.
but he understood what we were going to do. We were going to use them as documenting the legacy and using them for inspiration, not only honoring the past, but celebrating the present and inspiring the future. So I talk about collector community. There's a man who's a web designer in Canberra, Australia. And it's a long story that I won't go into, but he got a watch, he took it apart, he really got into this Bulova. He's a web designer, he started a website. Fast forward, he now has 15,000 registered Bulova collectors on his site.
Wow.
He has a panel of 6 to 8 people. Before you can post a picture on there, they validate the authenticity of that watch and what the whole backstory
Yeah,
is.
watch nerds are crazy. I'm
Right.
not kidding. We are. I mean, those guys are. They're so hyper focused on that stuff.
And actually, the last one I will mention is maybe not your typical collector, but this man is a Dutch national, born in Paraguay, lives in Hong Kong, is a senior executive of a $10 billion company. Also had one watch, fascinated by it. It was an Art Deco watch, ladies. And he said, gee, you should find out more about the history of this. So he started collecting ladies, Art Deco ladies' watches. His first book, 500 pages, was Bulova Ladies Art Deco watches from 1922 to 1930. So his second book, the sequel, as you can imagine, was Bulova Art Deco Ladies watches from 1931 to 1934. And now he's working on a prequel that I've been writing the forward. And it's a godsend to the collector community to have this resource. And from a Bulova standpoint, we're helping to support him with information that we have, but it is just
Man, he may have more information than you guys
Yes.
even have
Yes.
at this point. So that's actually, that's the next question I had for you was, the archives are still relatively a newer thing for you, but who had that idea? How did that come about?
So I retired after 30 years with the company in 2010. 6 years later, the president called me, who I had known him, he was not with Bulova when I was there, and he said, you know, we don't have a company history. Would you be willing to come back to establish that history, codify what had happened, and be the historian? So I said, I could do that on a sort of part-time basis, and that's how the journey continued. He saw the value that Citizen actually had bought was the legacy of this brand that started in 1875. So fast forward, we now have an archive, and I have an archivist that helps me keep track of all of this stuff. We have 2,600 physical items, not just watches, but it could be patents, clocks, ephemera, engineering materials. I have 5,000 digital items, including old commercials and images of different things. And we've published 2 coffee table books. We have...
I have both.
And then...
They're very heavy.
Yes. For the 150th, we said, okay, what do you want? What should we do? And the executives first said, well, let's do another book. And I said, well, we did that, and it's not as engaging. So that's how the idea came about to do this documentary. And I encourage you to watch it. It is not a documentary about watches. It's about culture. It's about Americana. It has Grammy Award-winning people in it. It has celebrities like Barbara Palumbo in it, or
It's a
Danelle.
tiny little part. It's just a little snippet.
But it was a labor of love. It took over a year, and we screened it at the Cannes Film Festival in May of this year. So it's more of a Ken Burns kind of documentary, and even if you're not into watches or a watch aficionado, you'd say, I didn't know that. For instance, Bulova was the first company ever to advertise on television.
Right. It's Frank Sinatra television show, right?
No, it was before a Brooklyn Dodgers Philadelphia Phillies baseball game, but we did sponsor the Frank
That's why
Sinatra
you're
show
the historian and
from
I'm not.
1950 to 1950.
And radio, right?
We were the first company to nationally advertise on radio. Not too many people in this room will remember, but starting in 1926, Bulova did, on every radio station across America, time checks. Because to set your watch, and they weren't as accurate back then, It would be, it's 8 p.m. Bulova Bulova watch time, at the sound of the tone. So that was on every radio station across America, starting in 1926. By the 1950s, it had aired 5 billion times. So these are the kinds of things that sort of, I think, aha or wow kinds of things that are included into the documentary.
So every March during Women's History Month, I'm going to just throw something in really quickly again about women. But I like to do this sort of daily post about important women in the watch world because, let's face it, guys, I mean, it's changing, thankfully, but watches were largely a male-dominated field. Whether it was watchmaking, watch collectors, brand heads, still largely dominated by men. So I try to focus for 31 days in March on the different women who made their impact, going way back. But do you know who the Greenwich time lady? Do you know the history of her?
No.
Okay, so they're kind
Greenwich,
of
Connecticut, Greenwich.
no Greenwich Mean Time in England. So Donnell, do you know this history at all?
I don't know.
Maybe.
There was a woman whose father worked at the conservatory, and this was like I think in the 1800s, who she would sell time because her pocket watch, which was her father's pocket watch, would be set. It was like the only place that could set the exact time of that era. So she would go to different businesses and sell the time so that they were accurate. And I cannot remember her name off the top of my head, but it is on my Instagram page. I just found that so fascinating because in a sense, that's what Bulova was doing, was like a time check, but she was doing it before radio, before television, literally this little old lady walking from business to business, selling them accurate time.
You mentioned the equal time, equal pay ad, which was, revolution in a social statement besides telling people that we had ladies' watches for Accutron at the time. But in 1927, Bulova hired a woman, her name was Laurie Sandoz Peters, in Bienne, Switzerland, and she became one of the icons of the industry. So Bulova has been very involved in, I could say, women empowerment. She ran ultimately the factory in Bienne, which had 900 people in it. So it was innovative in the industry and especially for Switzerland.
Sure, it's still, I mean, what, they gave women fully in all of the cantons in Switzerland the right to vote in 1992, I think, or no, 1970, it was the late 70s. 80 what?
89.
89, okay, all right, that's why I was like 92, roughly around there. Again, oh, the Swiss, bless their hearts. Okay, Donnell, I'm gonna kick this back to you. All right, do you look to other disciplines for creative ideas, and if so, how do they influence your work? How closely is it more like your design process is you wake up in the middle of the night and like you've got a notepad beside your bed and you're like, and you jot something down, or is there something very structured and specific that you look at?
It's very unstructured, actually.
It's very good.
Yeah, it's usually
The proper way a creative
on
should be.
whims, things that kind of come to me, but I definitely look to other industries. I think a lot of designers will tell you if you stick to only the industry that you're comfortable in, then you're gonna lose out on a lot of really good potential inspiration. So I look at everything from, and our whole team really looks at everything from architecture, fashion, comic books, some of the strangest things you could possibly imagine. Footwear is a very big one for us as well.
Oh, yeah.
It's just really important to make sure you get outside your industry. If you're continually looking at just one area, then there's just a lot you're going to miss. So it's extremely important. There are days where I don't even look at watches, to be honest. I just
Do you
everything
keep
else.
mood boards?
What's that?
Do you have mood boards?
I do have mood boards.
Do you?
Yeah, the whole team has mood
Love
boards.
that.
Yeah, definitely.
I love a good mood board. It's so good.
Pinterest is like my best friend when it comes to like putting all this stuff together. You download it. It's great.
So I want to share, before I'm going to kick a question to both of you, but I want to share a little personal story first. So my son is 19 years old and a pain in the rear. I'm sorry, did I say that? I meant to think it. I apologize. But since I've been writing about watches, which has been fully 10 years as of next year, he has been interested. And I used to go to Basel World or SIHH, and every time on my way home, I would stop in either the Geneva Airport or Zurich Airport, and I would buy him like a flick-flack, a Swatch flick-flack when he was little, and then it became G-Shocks. But the first mechanical timepiece I got for him was the Bulova Sinatra, which obviously, I know I said that earlier, but they were an advertiser on his television show. And he still wears that to this day. And I think I got that for him maybe at 14 or 15, but that's like his dress watch. For me, it signified a shift in demographics with regard to collecting. My son has a solid like 13, 14 watches right now at 19 years old. You know, I get a good discount, but so I want to ask both of you, like, where do you see the demographics of your customer today, and where had you seen it maybe shift? Are you, and Donnell, we could start with you, but I'd like you both to answer that.
Well, let's say I started with the company in about 2014. And at that point, the customer was definitely, I would say, a little older in age. Very, like, they knew a lot about the history of the brand that we like to tell, obviously. And basically, up until I would say the last maybe like 5 or 6 years, it's kind of been steady in terms of the age range of the customer and the demographic of the customer. I think it was.
But even like male to female, you
Yeah.
know, younger, middle age, older, like where are you seeing more women become?
We're seeing definitely more women. We're definitely seeing younger people. We're seeing a more diverse group of people being involved. I mean, I think, again, it's about telling the history that we have, right? And I think if you don't tell that history, if you don't tell those stories, then people won't want to be involved with your brand. They see it as just another watch. Like, what's the selling point here? I think we've done a really good job in terms of the outreach to different demographics. There are lots of enthusiast groups who are composed of younger people, more diverse people who are just getting more and more interested in watches. And just as a side note, the Apple Watch, right? I think we owe a lot
The
of
what? I never heard of it.
I think we owe a lot of credit to the Apple Watch in the sense of people seeing the sort of the viability of something on their wrist, right? It's sort of a gateway drug, is what we like to call it.
Yeah,
So-
no, it is. I agree to that. When the industry, because the industry, when the Apple Watch came out, kind of exploded. The Swiss, they thought it was going to be like the quartz crisis
Right.
2.0. And it affected sales in some small way, but the way I always looked at it, the reality was, if someone didn't wear a watch, they suddenly were used to that feeling of what a watch would
Exactly.
feel like on your wrist. And plenty of my friends who are watch collectors wear an Apple Watch on their opposite wrist and then wear an actual mechanical timepiece or a quartz timepiece. So I don't think it necessarily was a hinder as much as it may have eventually. I think when it first came out, it was different. But it's not a watch. Come
It's
on.
not.
It's a computer on your
definitely not.
wrist.
It's a
It's your
device.
phone on your wrist and like a tiny little size.
There's also a parallel on the collector side, and I meet sometimes with collector communities. Some of them are focused on younger and diverse demographic, and women especially who have not been traditionally watch collectors. And so when I do, they really love the stories and the genuine authenticity of the brand that they don't know because of their age and the exposure that they've had. And we've also found that the younger people tend to want to collect or wear things that their grandfather or grandmother had, not their parents. It skips a generation.
It's true.
You know, so that's been interesting to see what that dynamic has been and the shift. Also, Bulova becomes a more affordable collectible compared to some of the high-end prestige brands. And there's a lot of resources. I mentioned this website that people can get their hands around as long as I can point them in the right direction. Then they really get a passion for the brand as a lot of other people have.
Well, I have one more question for the two of you, and then I am going to open up the floor for Q&A. But one of the things, because you have now both mentioned the collector community, and I have as well. If you live in New York City, or even if you don't, the largest worldwide watch collecting community, if you're interested, and it's free to join, is called Red Bar. They started in New York, I think about 13 years ago, very small. They have grown. There is an event tonight I'm actually going to. But they're worldwide. They are on every continent except Antarctica. So if you are in Prague, there's Red Bar Prague. I live in Atlanta, there's Red Bar Atlanta. So they're all across the United States in most major cities. I think they have three in Wisconsin, like Madison, Green Bay, Wisconsin has a huge collector community. So if you are interested in watches, if you own watches, and if you feel like, you know what, I kind of want to learn a little bit more, it's a non-judgmental community. I mean, you can show up wearing a Flick Flack or an Invicta, God forbid, but, or, you know, wearing like a $1.3 million Grubel Force or something like that. So the other community I think that you maybe were talking about was Complecto. And Complecto came out a few years ago, and they're a bit more diversified. They really put a lot of focus on, because you were seeing these collector communities and it was just a bunch of white dudes. So Complecto sort of put forth like the idea that we're going to make this a little more well-rounded, and so they you know, it's geared more toward like people of color, different genders, and obviously, you know, pretty much whoever wants to come. If you're a white dude, you can still go, which is great. But they've really like made this pathway for other people.
Before you go on to
Yeah.
outside questions, one thing I failed to mention, which has been sort of the highlight of my career as a historian, is we now have 4 Bulova museums. There's one in the corporate headquarters in the Empire State Building, and it's unfortunately by appointment only. One above their Fifth Avenue flagship store. I just opened one last month at the National Association of Watch and Clock Collectors near Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Oh, I know where that is.
And, you know, it's great now to be able to share. It's not just an archive that we've got in the back room, that we're starting to let people have access to this history that people are respecting and appreciating.
Yeah, I grew up in Philly, so I'm very familiar. That's actually where Hamilton was. Another American watch brand started, was in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So oddly enough, Lancaster has like this incredible watchmaking history, and I'm so glad you guys are there. So this is going to be my last question to the two of you, and this is going to sort of, I think, this was a topic of conversation in several panels this week, but with the current administration slapping tariffs on Swiss imports of 31% and 25% on imported goods coming from Japan, how do you feel this is going to affect the purchase of new timepieces? And do you, two-part, and do you think there will be a greater interest in vintage timepieces with these tariffs on the new timepieces?
Well, I mean, the tariffs are definitely affecting us in basically up and down the supply chain in every sort of aspect of it. But I think there's just a staying power behind traditional watches where people are. Yeah, I think it will affect it, but I think the staying power there, that people will still eventually want to purchase their watches. Like, if I look at a Grail watch, right, something that I really want, I think if it jumps a couple $1,000s, yeah, that might be a little tough to swallow.
What's your Grail watch, just because you mentioned it?
Well,
Tell me.
Mine is kind of simple. It's just a regular old Speedmaster.
That's not, but still, that's
Yeah,
great.
Yeah, in
Go
terms
ahead.
of for watches that are not Bulova, I'm gonna just preface it by
You're
saying that.
allowed.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I don't see it as something that's really the true collector, the true person that really loves watches and lives and breathes it. I don't think it's going to affect it to the point where it's going to be industry changing, and certainly not for us either.
So do you not, so like for me, to draw a parallel, I really don't buy new clothing anymore. I definitely don't buy fast fashion.
Right.
I buy pre-owned, and I buy like vintage at this point because it already exists, and I think it's obviously better for the environment. It's more sustainable. I mean, train my Gen Z kids to kind of think in the same way. Like, would you see sort of like an uptick? Do you think you'll see an uptick in both vintage and pre-owned Bulovas? Because they're already here and they're not having to be made.
Yeah.
You know, do you think that's potentially going to be the
I don't see
case?
why not. I mean, there's, like you said, Bulova's, the quality is just, it's there, right?
Right.
We have watches that have been around, I mean, as long as you get them serviced, you know, there's no reason why these watches couldn't last you a lifetime, even if you bought it, you know, pre-owned. So, yeah, I see no reason why that, you know, someone wouldn't want to go in that direction. I mean, you look at a lot of the other brands, luxury brands, some of the you know, the Rolexes, the Omegas. I'd say they have a fairly robust used market and secondhand market, and there's no reason why Bulova shouldn't or doesn't as well.
Yeah. Carl?
On the non-vintage side, I think that people may look to trade up. They may say, oh, I've had this watch for a number of years. I'll put it on eBay and I'll buy the new latest and greatest creation from Donnell. So I think there may be some of that will happen so that people have more funds to spend. I think that I see collectors saying, for instance, this wind-up watch fair I go to, there's one in New York City.
Yeah.
And I see people saying, gee, they know exactly what they want. They want to know when it's going to go on sale. They will grab it. They plan for it. They save up for it. So I think that there may be more conscious decisions where people make decisions a long time before the actual purchase that will happen. But I have seen, especially now that with the archive, sometimes I'll look for specific watches, and I've seen over the last 5 years a significant increase in Bulova watches, vintage watches for sale. The same watch is now much higher priced. And sometimes with these multiple museums, I've had to go and try to find the same watch so that I can have two different showings, because it's like the watch that you have on your wrist. When I see one of those, I may just pop and get it. But so I'm very sensitive to the changes in the prices, and I've seen them constantly going up and up and up.
I think would be vital, I mean, even if that happens and sales for the time being, which it clearly, these tariffs are not going to last forever, and we know that. It's all like with anything right now. It's a phase, I feel, anyway. They're not going to last forever. So I think even just keeping Bulova top of mind if somebody is buying vintage or if somebody is buying pre-owned, just keeping that brand name out there is not necessarily a bad thing, even if it slows production of the pieces coming out of Japan for the time being. So thank you, gentlemen, both so much. And I am going to throw the floor out for questions. If anybody has a question, raise your hand. Oh, come on. Okay, Amy.
Amy.
Thank you. In the vintage market, pre-owned, whatever the case may be, besides the metal value, where are we going with, when you said the prices are going up and up and up, what is determining that?
I just think demand, it's informing the customer base what those watches are and how significant they are, and whether or not it's a specific design motif or a technology that was used. It resonates differently with different people, but I think the internet has exploded the information available to people, so it's not like only a few people know about this watch. Now everybody can find out and see that this watch was only in production during 1970 to 1971, and that's a cool watch, and I want to get it. In some cases, we have new watches that come out that Danelle works on, our archive series, these reissues, for instance, and then you see the price of the original one from 50, 70 years ago becoming much, much higher. So the new watches are actually increasing the demand of the vintage watches.
Okay, that I understand. I'm an appraiser. What I come in contact with, these beautiful old Art Deco watches, the women go, they've inherited them. Their great Aunt Tilly, their mother, their whoever. And they go, I can't read the dial. What do I, and I'm like, it's a pretty bracelet. I don't know.
But actually, you can see up here afterwards, we have a thing called the Goddess of Time, inspired with mesh bracelets, sort of like what you would have thought your old Aunt Tilly would be wearing. And sometimes it becomes emotional. I'm going to wear this because I remember my Aunt Tilly was wearing that, and there's a tie to that person. And watches, to me, more than any other category, create this connection to that person that gave it to you or that occasion where you received it. It's something that's 24/7, that's always working, and compared to, let's say, jewelry that you may be wearing, earrings, here you see what you're wearing. It's not only the person who's looking at you can see it. So, and every time you tell the time, it brings you back to Aunt Tilly.
I'm just going to hog this for a little
Keep
bit.
it going. Pressure him.
Go for it,
I love
Amy.
it.
So my question is, for the older vintage watches,
Yes.
Like, are you saying that you're having a tough time determining value at this point in time because you're seeing a shift in, because there is such a
I'm seeing
change?
clients come to me and, well, the watch isn't running. So, to find a watchmaker who can take care of an older watch. And what about replacement parts? Where does Bulova stand on some of these issues?
Yeah, when I was Chief Operating Officer, service reported to me, so I had a repair department of actually 62 people at one time. Parts do become an issue, but there are people that are specializing out there in the marketplace. I mean, I have people that are like Accutron doctors. They specialize in repairing specific Accutrons. You just need to find those people if it's something that's unique that only a limited number of people can do. There's one other initiative. Bulova just donated millions and millions of dollars of parts to something called the Veterans Watchmakers Initiative. It's in Odessa, Delaware. It's based upon the same philosophy as the Joseph Bulova School was in 1945. That was for disabled veterans coming back from overseas who needed a vocation, who needed the dignity of a job. And so a man about 6 years ago started this operation for disabled vets coming back from Afghanistan, Iraq, wherever, and is now training people. And Bulova donated millions and millions of dollars worth of parts so that people could send their watches, and these new watchmakers can service those watches.
And Amy, they do, that is in the documentary. There's a whole
Right.
section to that, so if you do watch it. It's an hour-long documentary. I mean, it's like a quick watch, so. Hi, in the back.
Hi, thank you so much. This is fascinating. Christina Mal, ethical metalsmith. I'm also a designer, and I have a couple questions for Danelle.
Yeah.
I would love to hear about, I think you said titanium, Damascus steel. I'm familiar with both of those things, but not together in a watch. I'd love to hear about that. And the second question is about when you have a vision for a product or a product line, are you ever stymied by supply chain challenges? Like, are you told, well, we can't source from this country right now because we're not sure of the provenance? Like, how does supply chain issues and vulnerabilities factor into your creations? And thank you. This is really fun. Thank you.
Yeah, so titanium and Damascus steel, usually you never hear of them together, but it is something that has sort of been emerging in not only watchmaking, but other industries. If you know anything about Damascus steel, you know that it's mostly used in knife making. Titanium has got a bevy of really incredible properties. It's lightweight, it's super strong, all these things. So when they come together, actually, it's a heat treating process that they do. And so if you look at the dials that we have, you heat treat it and it actually turns these different colors. Essentially, you get blues, and it's really a spectrum from blue, orange, yellow, reds, purple. So we can actually control that depending on how much heat and for how long. So it creates the colors of that you get, and the zebra striping, the pattern of Damascus steel. So it's really a unique combination of materials, and I think you're going to see a little bit more of it in the next coming years in terms of watchmaking. As far as supply chain, I'd say we're stymied in our design in a variety of different ways, right? We try to push things forward, be really innovative. So I would say it's not just the supply chain; it's also the limits of technology in terms of what we can and can't do currently, right? So I've had some ideas where engineering has come back to me and, they said, are you nuts? What are you thinking? This is not possible. I said, well, okay, maybe in the next 10, 15 years or something, maybe it will be possible. So those kinds of things for sure. As far as supply chain, that's not something that design really deals with so much. That's sort of for other departments to deal with, but I think our limitations are more technology-based. Yeah.
I will
Thank you
say
for
on
that.
the limitations, we have had some issues or some challenges reproducing some things that were very artisanal or required a lot of detail, like the Miss America watch that we did. I said, there's no way they're going to be able to do it. And they did it. Because the craftsmanship at the time was different and the materials were different. But to do things in stainless steel and trying to find people that could do it, I thought would be impossible. But with some technologies and 3D printing and laser, then things become possible so that they can look exactly like they did back in 1930.
So the majority of the material that we use is stainless steel, right? Which is much harder than, say, traditionally, sterling silver, right? Sterling silver, you can get a lot of really nice detail. You can, like, the curves can be nice. It looks a little more organic. It kind of flows. Stainless steel, you can't really get that so much. So that has been kind of limiting, but as Carl has said, we've been getting better and better and better, and the people that we've been using have been advancing their technologies to the point where we are, able to do some things that we weren't able to do 5-10 years prior. Yeah.
Thank you for that question.
And we have some watches up here. The one with the dial that you mentioned is up here, and it's really fascinating. Each one is unique. We also have in the Lunar Pilot that Danelle was talking about before, we have a meteorite version where we have a meteor that was discovered in like 1906 in the UK, and we take slices of that meteor, so every watch is different, and the dials are spectacular.
All right, well, do we have any other questions? If not, I think we're probably going to make way for the next panel. No? Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Barbara.
And Issues in Arts and Culture. This
Thank
is
you.
so great. Thanks, everybody, for coming.